Have you ever felt like no matter how much you save as a student, it never seems to actually move the needle on your financial future? I remember when I was in college, I was scraping together every dollar, skipping meals, cutting corners, only to realize later I was saving all wrong. That's why in this video, we're breaking down the real way to build wealth fast as a student. You'll learn why traditional saving advice keeps you broke, what strategies actually grow your money, and how you can start today. Even if you feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck, most students believe that saving money is as simple as cutting back on coffee, skipping nights out, or putting every spare dollar into a savings account. The problem is that this kind of advice, while well-intentioned, often keeps you broke in the long run. Think about it. If you're setting aside 50 or 100 every month into a basic savings account, and that account is paying you less than 1% in interest, inflation is already eating away more value than you're gaining. Over the course of a year, your 200 in savings might buy less than what it would have if you had spent it up front. The hard truth is, traditional saving advice doesn't teach you how to grow wealth. It only teaches you how to hoard money in a way that slowly loses value. That's why so many students feel frustrated, because they're doing everything right according to conventional wisdom, but still find themselves stuck in the same financial place. The solution is to flip the way you think about saving. Instead of just focusing on how much you can cut back, you need to focus on where your money is going and how it's working for you. Saving is important, it's the foundation, but the key difference is purposeful saving versus passive saving. Purposeful saving means directing your money into accounts, tools, or assets that actually grow over time. For example, if you're a student, you probably don't have thousands to invest, but even putting small amounts into a high-yield savings account, or better yet, a beginner-friendly investment platform like an index fund or a Roth IRA can change the entire game. You're not just holding on to cash, you're letting it compound. Compounding is the secret weapon that traditional save and don't spend advice completely ignores. Let's put this into perspective with an example. Imagine student A saves 100 every month in a basic checking account. After 5 years, they'll have 6,000 saved, but the actual buying power of that money will be less because inflation eats away at it. Now take student B, who also saves 100 every month, but instead invests it into a broad market index fund earning an average of 7% annually. At the end of 5 years, student B doesn't just have 6,000, they have closer to 7,000. It might not seem like a huge difference in the short term, but the gap only gets wider over time. Fast forward 20 years, and student A has 24,000 just sitting there, while student B has nearly 50,000 because of growth. That's the difference between saving wrong and saving right. It's not about who's more disciplined, it's about who understands how money works. I personally made this mistake early on. I used to think that if I just kept stacking dollars in my savings account, eventually I'd get ahead. But when I ran the numbers, I realized the bank was literally making more off my money than I was. They take deposits, lend it out, and make interest on it while I was sitting there happy with my tiny balance that wasn't growing. That was the turning point when I started channeling my savings into assets that actually build wealth. Even as a student with limited income, I learned that directing even $50 into investments meant I was planting seeds that could grow into something much bigger. So the problem isn't that students aren't disciplined enough to save, it's that they're being told to save the wrong way. The solution is to make your money active rather than passive, to let it work for you instead of sitting idle. And the example of two students saving the same amount but ending up in completely different financial positions makes it clear. The way you save matters more than how much you save. Most students are told from the very beginning that if they just keep saving little by little, eventually they'll be financially secure. The problem is that saving alone doesn't address the bigger issue: inflation and stagnant growth. If you're simply putting your money into a traditional savings account, you're not actually building wealth. You're preserving dollars that are slowly losing value every single year. Inflation works like a silent thief, taking away the purchasing power of your money while you think you're being responsible. For example, let's say you've managed to put away 5,000 in a bank account. In 5 years, the cost of tuition, rent, and even groceries will have gone up, but your $5,000 is still 5,000. The longer you rely on savings alone, the more you're trapped in a cycle where your money is safe but stagnant. And that creates frustration because no matter how hard you try, the numbers don't seem to grow in a meaningful way. The solution is to stop viewing saving as the end goal and start seeing it as a stepping stone to investing. Investing doesn't have to mean risky stock picking or gambling with your limited student income. It means understanding that your money should be working for you instead of just sitting there. When you invest, whether in a low-cost index fund, a Roth IRA, or even fractional shares through beginner-friendly apps, your money has the chance to grow faster than inflation. Instead of your dollars being slowly eaten away, they're compounding over time, multiplying without you having to constantly add more. The key shift here is recognizing that saving is just step one. Building wealth comes from taking that saved money and allocating it into assets that appreciate. To put this into an example, Imagine two students again. Student A and student B both save $200 a month for 10 years. Student A puts it all into a standard bank account that earns practically nothing in interest. After 10 years, student A has $24,000 saved. Not bad, but if inflation has averaged around 3% a year, the real buying power of that money might feel closer to $18,000. On the other hand, student B puts that same $200 into a total stock market index fund, averaging a modest 7% annual return. After 10 years, student B has close to $34,000. That's a $10,000 difference, and neither one had to work harder or sacrifice more. It was purely the choice of where their money went. Over a lifetime, that difference compounds into hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the earlier you start, the greater the advantage becomes. I went through this realization myself when I first started working. I was saving every extra penny, proud of the balance I saw in my account. But it wasn't moving. It took me a while to understand that banks are designed to make money off you, not for you. They lend your deposits out at much higher rates than they pay you in interest. Once I shifted gears and started funneling my savings into investments, even small amounts began to feel powerful. Watching my money grow without me constantly adding more was the moment it clicked that wealth isn't about what you save. It's about what you grow. So the core problem is that students are saving with the belief that it will secure their future, when in reality, they're leaving potential growth on the table. The solution is to use saving as a foundation and investing as the engine that multiplies it. And the example of two students saving the same amount but ending up in vastly different situations proves one crucial point. Saving alone will never make you wealthy, but saving with a plan to invest can change your entire financial trajectory. The biggest problem students face when it comes to money is that they think working harder is the only way to get ahead financially. The mindset is, if I just take on another part-time job, or work longer hours, then I'll finally have enough to save and eventually build wealth. But this way of thinking traps you in the idea that your income is the only resource you have and that your time is the only thing you can trade. The truth is, there's a limit to how many hours you can work, and there's always a ceiling on how much you can earn as a student. On top of that, expenses like tuition, books, and living costs rise faster than the wages you're earning, which means even if you're hustling more, you're still barely moving ahead. This leads to burnout and the constant feeling that no matter how much effort you put in, your bank account never really reflects it. The solution is to learn how to make your money work for you, not just you working for your money. This means breaking free from the mindset that wealth is only built by working harder, and instead understanding the principle of leverage and compounding. When you put your money into assets, whether it's stocks, index funds, a side hustle that scales, or even a skill that increases your earning potential, you're creating a system where your dollars are producing more dollars. That's the entire idea of passive income, and it's something most students overlook because they're too focused on the short-term hustle. By redirecting even a small portion of your income into something that grows on its own, you create momentum. Over time, the money you earn from those assets becomes greater than the money you earn from your hours worked. And that's when true financial independence starts to feel possible. For example, think about two students again. Student A works two jobs, saving every bit of money in a regular bank account. They're exhausted, and after 3 years, they've managed to save up $6,000. Student B, on the other hand, works just one job but chooses to invest $150 a month into a diversified index fund. After 3 years, student B not only has the $5,400 they contributed, but also an additional $500 to $600 in growth from compounding returns. Now, the difference might seem small at first glance, but here's the key. Student A's money stops growing the moment they stop working, while student B's money continues to compound year after year, even if they put in less effort later. Over the long term, student B is positioned to be miles ahead financially without having to grind themselves down with endless hours of work. I personally experienced this shift when I realized I couldn't outwork my financial problems. Early on, I thought the only way to get ahead was to pick up more shifts, cut back on everything, and push harder. But all that did was leave me tired, stressed, and still not where I wanted to be financially. The turning point was understanding that if I redirected even part of my energy into building assets, whether that meant investing in index funds, buying books and courses to grow my skills, or starting small side hustles that could scale, I could create something that multiplied without my constant effort. That's when I saw how money could actually work for me instead of against me. So the problem isn't that students aren't working hard enough, it's that they're working in the wrong way, trading time for money without realizing the limits of that model. The solution is to build systems and habits where money is actively generating more money, leveraging the power of compounding in assets. And the example of two students with similar incomes but completely different outcomes highlights the truth. Working harder might keep you afloat, but making your money work for you is what ultimately builds wealth. The problem many students face is that they assume wealth building strategies are out of reach until after graduation or until they land a high-paying job. This belief creates a delay mentality where they tell themselves, I'll start saving and investing once I earn more money. The issue is that by waiting, they lose the most valuable factor in wealth creation: time. Every year you postpone putting money to work, you're not just losing the amount you could have saved, You're losing the compound growth that money could have generated. For students, this is critical because you might not have a lot of income now, but you do have years ahead of you that could multiply even the smallest contributions. Ignoring this opportunity means you're relying only on future income and missing out on the exponential growth that comes from starting early. The solution is to take advantage of simple, student-friendly strategies that make wealth building possible even with limited money. You don't need thousands of dollars to start. Many platforms today allow you to invest with as little as $5 or 10. And even high-yield savings accounts or micro-investing apps can give you a place to start. Instead of thinking you need to overhaul your entire financial life, the key is to build consistent habits with whatever you can manage. Putting away $50 a month might not feel like much, but over time, it builds momentum and teaches you discipline. That discipline, combined with time, creates results that most students underestimate. The point isn't how much you're investing right now. It's that you're creating the system and habit that will carry you forward when you do start earning more. Take this example. Imagine two students graduate at the same time. Student A waited until graduation to start saving and investing because they believed they didn't have enough as a student. They start at age 22 and invest $200 a month. Student B, on the other hand, started investing just $50 a month at age 18 while still in school. By the time both reach age 30, student A has invested $19 to $200, while student B has invested only $7 to $200. But thanks to compound growth, student B's portfolio could actually be ahead of student A's in total value, despite investing less. The reason is simple. Student B gave their money more years to compound, and those extra years make all the difference over decades. Fast forward further, and student B will always stay ahead, even if they invest less money overall, because time is the multiplier. I had this realization myself when I first discovered compound interest. I used to think, I'll start later when I have real money to invest. But I ran the numbers and realized that even $50 invested consistently in my late teens or early 20s could grow into hundreds of thousands over a lifetime. That completely changed the way I looked at money. Instead of waiting, I started small, and over time, the amounts I could put away grew. But the most powerful factor was that I had already built the habit, so scaling up was easy. By contrast, I've seen countless people wait until their late 20s or 30s to start, and they end up working twice as hard to try and catch up, often without success. So the problem is that students think they have too little money for wealth building, when in reality, they have the one advantage most older adults would give anything for: time. The solution is to start small, use beginner-friendly tools, and let consistency and compounding do the heavy lifting. And the example of two students, one starting with little early on and one waiting until later, proves that starting small today beats starting big tomorrow every single time. One of the biggest problems students face when it comes to money is falling into common financial mistakes that feel harmless in the moment but add up to massive setbacks over time. Things like swiping a credit card for unnecessary expenses, upgrading phones or gadgets every year, eating out constantly, or even taking on student loans without a repayment plan can all create habits that bleed money without you even realizing it. The issue is that when you're young, it feels like you have plenty of time to figure it out later, so these small decisions don't seem to matter. But over months and years, they snowball into patterns that are difficult to break. A student who overspends on credit cards thinking they'll pay it off after graduation might face thousands of dollars in debt at interest rates as high as 20%, which means they're digging a hole that gets deeper the longer they wait. The mistake isn't just about the money. It's about forming habits that keep you broke well into adulthood. The solution is to identify and correct these mistakes early by being intentional with every dollar. This doesn't mean living a miserable, restrictive life where you never enjoy yourself. It means being aware of the traps and choosing smarter alternatives. For instance, instead of using credit cards for short-term gratification, use them strategically to build credit by paying them off in full every month. Instead of upgrading to the newest tech, stick with what works and funnel the difference into savings or investments. Rather than letting lifestyle inflation creep in, where your spending rises every time you earn a little more, commit to keeping expenses steady and letting the extra income grow your wealth. The earlier you fix these patterns, the easier it becomes to build strong financial habits that stick. Money mistakes aren't just about what you lose now, they're about how much wealth you miss out on in the future if you don't correct them. Take this example. Student A and Student B both earn $500 a month from part-time work. Student A spends freely, often on eating out, new clothes, and impulsive purchases, and ends up carrying a credit card balance of thousands of dollars and at a 20% interest rate. By the end of the year, they've spent more than they earned, and now they owe extra in interest. Student B, on the other hand, decides to track their spending, cuts back on unnecessary costs, and avoids carrying credit card debt. They live on $400 a month and save $100. By the end of the year, Student B has $200 saved. While that may not seem like a huge amount, the difference is dramatic. Student A is in debt and falling behind, while Student B has a financial cushion and the ability to invest. Over 5 years, Student A could end up with thousands in debt, while Student B could be sitting on several thousand in savings and investments that continue to grow. The gap doesn't come from earning more, but from avoiding common mistakes. I've seen this play out not only in my own life, but also in countless people around me. When I was younger, I made the mistake of spending impulsively, thinking I'd always find a way to make up for it later. But when the bills came due, I realized how quickly bad habits can trap you in a cycle. The turning point for me was when I started tracking my expenses and asking myself whether each purchase was moving me closer to financial freedom or keeping me stuck. That simple shift, catching the mistakes early and replacing them with better habits, completely changed my trajectory. I realized it wasn't about making more money at that point. It was about not wasting the money I already had. So the problem is that students underestimate the impact of small financial mistakes, brushing them off as insignificant, when in reality they compound into long-term struggles. The solution is to spot these mistakes early and replace them with intentional habits that build stability instead of debt. And the example of two students with the same income but opposite outcomes shows clearly that the difference between falling behind and getting ahead often comes down to whether or not you let these mistakes control your future. The problem most students face is that they don't have a clear plan or roadmap for their finances. They might save a little here and there, maybe invest sporadically, or spend whatever is left after bills, but there's no consistent direction. This lack of structure leads to inconsistency, and inconsistency is the enemy of building wealth. Without a clear system, it's easy to get distracted by short-term wants, fall back into poor habits, or stop saving altogether when money feels tight. Many students tell themselves they'll figure it out later. But later often becomes never, and by the time they try to get serious, they realize years of opportunity have already slipped away. The absence of a plan is what keeps so many stuck in the cycle of paycheck to paycheck, even when they have the potential to do much better. The solution is to create a step-by-step path that makes building wealth simple, automatic, and sustainable, even on a student's limited income. A plan doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs to clearly outline what happens to your money each time you get paid. For example, setting up a system where 10% of every dollar goes into savings or investments before you spend anything ensures you're paying yourself first. Automating transfers into a high-yield savings account or an investment platform removes the temptation to spend that money. On top of that, setting financial goals, whether it's saving $5,000 for an emergency fund, putting $50 a month into an index fund, or paying down a credit card balance, gives you milestones to track. Having these goals creates accountability and makes the process feel achievable rather than overwhelming. The point is to stop relying on motivation alone and instead build a system that keeps you consistent even when life gets busy. Here's an example that makes this clear. Student A earns $600 a month from a part-time job but has no plan. Some months they save $50, other months they save nothing because they overspend. At the end of the year, their savings account has only $200 in it because their spending fluctuated and there was no system in place. Student B also earns $600 a month, but they set up an automatic transfer of $6 into a savings and investment account every month. By the end of the year, they've saved $720, plus whatever growth came from investing part of it. The difference isn't that student B made more money, it's that they had a consistent plan and stuck to it. Over 5 years, student A continues to struggle with inconsistency and has barely anything to show for it, while student B quietly builds a portfolio worth thousands, all because of a simple system. I've seen firsthand how powerful it is to have a financial plan. Early on, I didn't track where my money went. I saved when I felt motivated, but the moment something came up, a trip, a night out, an unexpected expense, I'd spend what I had and tell myself I'd do better next month. The problem was, there was always another next month. When I finally set up a simple system that automatically moved money into savings and investments before I even saw it, everything changed. Suddenly, I wasn't relying on discipline alone. The plan worked in the background, and the consistency began to add up. Even small amounts became significant over time because they never got lost in the shuffle of day-to-day spending. So the problem is that most students drift through their finances without a system, leaving their future up to chance. The solution is to create a clear step-by-step plan that automates saving, investing, and goal setting, so building wealth happens consistently. And the example of two students with the same income but completely different results shows that it's not about how much you make, but about whether or not you have a plan guiding what you do with it. So, quick recap. Most students save the wrong way by keeping money in low-interest accounts, ignoring investing, and relying only on hard work. The solution is to start small, make your money work for you through investing, avoid common financial traps, and stick to a simple system that builds consistency over time. Even little amounts, when used wisely, can compound into life-changing wealth. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and leave a comment sharing the biggest money mistake you've made so far. I'd love to read your stories and maybe even feature them in a future video. And if you're ready to take this even further, my next video will uncover the hidden income streams most students overlook, ways to earn more without working endless hours. You won't want to miss it.